Have you ever caught yourself wondering, why am I even alive? What's the point of waking up every day, rushing to work, paying bills, going through the same motions again and again? Most of us have felt that at some point, but we push the thought away because life keeps us busy. But sometimes, it's not us adults who bring it up, it's a child. A child with clear eyes and a simple, innocent voice can ask a question that stops us in our tracks. This story begins on a calm Sunday morning, when a little boy asked his father that very question. What started as a casual walk in the park turned into a journey, one that stretched from small, ordinary things like groceries and bills, all the way to big questions about family, society, even the meaning of life itself. If you've ever felt lost or wondered why we're all here, stay with this story. You might just hear something that speaks directly to you. It was a cool, crisp Sunday morning. The sky was wide and blue, with thin white clouds drifting lazily overhead. The park was alive in its own quiet way, joggers passing by, an elderly couple practicing Tai Chi, parents pushing strollers while sipping coffee. The smell of cut grass, still damp with dew, lingered in the air. A father walked slowly along the stone path, holding the small hand of his son. His grip was warm and steady, the kind of grip that said, "I've got you." The boy's sneakers tapped lightly against the pavement, his curious eyes darting around, watching the sunlight spill through the trees, listening to the faint chatter of birds, soaking in every detail as if the whole world belonged to him. To the boy, this was special. On weekdays, his dad was hardly homed out the door before sunrise, back when the sky was dark again. Sometimes too tired to talk, sometimes carrying more work to finish late into the night. Most days, his dad felt close but also far away, like someone living in two worlds at once. That's why a quiet walk like this, just the two of them, felt like a treasure. "Dad," the boy said softly. The father glanced down, smiling. "Yeah, buddy. Why don't we come to the park on other days? Why only Sundays?" The father chuckled and ruffled his son's hair. The smile on his face carried a hint of guilt. "Because during the week, Dad has to work. Sunday's the only day I can take you out like this." The boy tilted his head, pausing as if to weigh the answer. Then, in that innocent, piercing way kids have, he asked, "Then, why do you have to work?" That stopped the father for a moment. He looked at his son, the question simple but heavy. "Well, I work so I can earn money. We need money to take care of our family, buy food, clothes, pay for our home, the lights, the water, the car, medicine when we get sick. There are a lot of things we need, and that's why I work." The boy blinked, nodding slowly. Words like earn money, bills, take care of the family didn't fully belong in his small world yet. But he wasn't just asking for fun. He was thinking, really thinking, but why do we need to spend so much money, Dad? The father laughed softly, but it wasn't a laugh at his son. It was the laugh of patience, of someone who knows this is the beginning of a bigger conversation. He tightened his grip on the boy's hand and explained, "Because that's how we live, son. We spend money to have food on the table, clothes to wear, a safe place to sleep, lights in our home, clean water to drink. We spend so that we can live decently, so you can grow up healthy and go to school. Without it, life would be a lot harder." The boy walked quietly for a while, his little brows furrowed, his sneakers slowing down as his mind spun. He wasn't being stubborn. He was wrestling with an idea that was bigger than him, bigger than most adults cared to think about. The father glanced at him. Sunlight streamed through the trees, landing on his son's thoughtful face. In those bright eyes, he saw both wonder and confusion, curiosity colliding with a sense of something heavy, something almost too big to name. He knew then this wasn't just a Sunday walk anymore. This was going to be a journey into questions he himself didn't always have clear answers to. The father gave his son's hand a reassuring squeeze, as if to say, "Go ahead. Ask me anything. We'll figure it out together." And sure enough, just moments later, another question came, this time even harder. One that would take their conversation beyond groceries, beyond money, into the very heart of existence. After their morning walk in the park, father and son returned to their small apartment, where soft light filtered through thin white curtains. The familiar space of the kitchen and living room felt warm and cozy, yet carried a quiet undercurrent of reflection. The father set his bag down on a chair and took a deep breath. The sizzling of the pan and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed together, creating a calm atmosphere, just enough for big questions to sneak into their minds. Daniel stood on his chair, staring at the bowl of cereal that had been prepared, not yet ready to eat, not hungry. The father asked gently, "Not yet," Daniel replied, eyes still fixed on the bowl. The father sat across from him, hands resting on the table. He didn't push him to eat, but simply observed every small gesture, the way Daniel tilted his head, the way his brows knitted together in thought. He knew today's questions were no longer simple childhood curiosities. "You're still thinking about what I said this morning, aren't you?" Daniel nodded slightly. "Yeah, I'm thinking about why we live, why Mum and Dad work so hard, why we have to spend money, why people have to live at all." The father smiled, a mix of worry and pride rising in him. "Son, I used to ask myself the same things when I was your age. Back then, I didn't have all the answers. But now I can tell you one thing. Life isn't just about existing. It's about experiencing, loving, and contributing." Daniel tilted his head, curious. "Contributing? What does that mean, Dad?" The father's voice softened, deliberate and steady. "It means helping others, doing something that makes life better around you. When I work, it's not just to earn money for our family, it's also to contribute to society, to the community. One day, you'll do the same." Daniel was quiet for a moment, then asked softly, "But if we only live for our family, is that enough? If we live but don't help anyone else, does life really have meaning?" The father looked out the window, where sunlight streamed onto the windowsill, creating bright patches on the floor. He thought of countless lives beyond these walls, children without families, elderly people alone, people struggling with sickness and poverty. "You're right, Daniel. Living only for yourself is limited. But when we live for others, when we care and share, life becomes rich and worthwhile. I want you to understand, living isn't just about yourself. It's about family, friends, and the wider community." Daniel pondered, eyes drifting toward the window. "So to help more people, Dad has to earn more money, right?" The father chuckled softly, eyes sparkling with pride and trust. "Yes, but wealth isn't for indulgence alone, son. Wealth is to help others, to build a better society, and to teach you the value of sharing when you grow up. If everyone thought like you, the whole country would be rich and could help even more people," Daniel said, excitement creeping into his voice. The father nodded. "Exactly. When our country is strong and prosperous, we can help other nations too. Living isn't just about surviving. It's about creating value and leaving something good for others. The two of them sat together in silence, yet each felt something profound stirring inside. Daniel looked at his father with admiration, and the father saw himself years ago curious, reflective, and full of hope. Breakfast passed with warmth, gentle laughter, and small stories. The small apartment became a place where seeds of meaning, responsibility, and love were planted. As Daniel stood up to help clear the table, the father sipped his coffee, watching the small figure bustling about. He knew Daniel's questions today weren't only making his son grow, they were making him live more consciously, refusing to let life pass by on autopilot. And so, their Sunday morning passed, with soft sunlight, big questions, and a small joy enough to carry both of them into a journey of discovering the meaning of life. Monday morning, the city awoke in a rush, alive with noise. Car horns blared, footsteps clattered on the sidewalks, and the sharp scent of gasoline mingled with the rich aroma of coffee from street-side cafes. People hurried past, clutching their phones and paper cups, faces tense but determined. The city seemed to pulse with a rhythm of urgency, one that everyone knew too well, and yet found exhausting. Inside a small apartment on the 4th floor, the world slowed down. The narrow space, lit by dim sunlight filtering through dusty windows, smelled faintly of burnt toast and stale coffee. The father sat at the table, hair messy from a sleepless night, staring at a cold cup of coffee. His thoughts wandered to Daniel's questions from yesterday, questions about the meaning of life, why we work so hard, and the greater values his son was beginning to sense. Daniel sat across from him, the cereal in his bowl now soggy, untouched. He stirred absent-mindedly, eyes distant, lost in thought. The father studied him, and for a moment saw himself in that small, pensive face, curious, questioning, and yet never given complete answers. The father took a deep breath. "You're still thinking about your questions from yesterday, aren't you?" Daniel nodded, eyes shining but uncertain. "Yeah. I'm wondering, if life is full of hardship and pain, then why even live, Dad?" The father met his son's gaze, steady and warm. "Son, suffering is part of life. No one can escape difficulties, losses, or the exhausting days that wear us down. But it's precisely those hardships that make the joyful moments so precious. Think about it, if the sun always shone, would we ever cherish a gentle rainy day? Those small peaceful moments become treasures because of contrast." Daniel furrowed his brow. "So, you're saying that suffering makes happiness real?" The father nodded. "Exactly. Without darkness, we wouldn't notice the light. Without failure, we wouldn't celebrate triumph. Without sadness, joy wouldn't feel complete. Life isn't perfect, but its reality is what makes it beautiful." Daniel fell silent for a moment, then whispered, "But sometimes, Dad, I imagine being too tired, too weighed down, and wanting to just give up." The father smiled gently, reaching out to ruffle Daniel's hair. "Everyone feels that way sometimes, Daniel. But when we rise, when we continue, and when we find meaning even in small moments, that is when we are truly living. Every laugh, every hug, every quiet moment, it all gives life value." Daniel picked up his spoon and slowly ate a bite of cereal, still thoughtful, but within him a small spark of understanding had ignited. Life wasn't just about existing. It was about experiencing, loving, and finding light in the darkness. The father leaned back in his chair, sipping his coffee, watching his son. He realized that Daniel's questions weren't only teaching the boy, they were reminding him why he worked, why he tried, and why every step of effort mattered. Each exhausting day had meaning when placed in the larger context of love, responsibility, and contribution. Later, on the crowded subway, the father looked around at weary faces. Everyone seemed to be merely surviving rather than truly living. Some dozed off, some stared at their phones, all trapped in their own cycles. The father quietly recalled Daniel's words from that morning. If life is only a burden, then why live at all? The question echoed in his mind, reminding him that he owed not only his son an answer, but himself one as well. Looking out at the dim tunnel, the pale lights of each station flashing by, he gripped the metal pole tightly. Deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. A journey lay ahead, one that would test both him and Daniel, teaching them to find light within darkness, joy within suffering, and to live fully in each passing moment. And so, Monday began with the city's relentless pace, the pressures of life, but also the opening of a new chapter for father and son, a journey to discover why we live, why we love, and why we give. Sunday afternoon drifted by slowly, with the golden light of sunset spilling through the window, bathing the room in a warm glow. Daniel sat on the living room floor, flipping through his favorite picture books, eyes still thoughtful. The father stood by the window, hands resting on the sill, looking out at the quieting street. But his mind was still full of reflections from the morning and today's breakfast conversation. "Dad?" Daniel looked up, voice small but steady. "I still don't really understand. Why do you have to work so hard?" The father turned to him, eyes warm and calm. He walked over and sat on the floor opposite Daniel, leaning slightly to be at eye level. "Son, I work not just to provide for our family. Working is also how we contribute to society. When I go to work, I help keep things running, help people around us live better lives." Daniel frowned. "But who exactly are you helping?" "Just our family." The father shook his head, speaking gently but firmly. "No, not just our family. We help friends, neighbors, our community, and even people we've never met. When I pay taxes, that money goes to schools, hospitals, roads, so that everyone can have a better life." Daniel fell silent, eyes drifting off. "So, you live not just for yourself, but for others too?" The father smiled, nodding slightly. "That's right, son. Do you see? If we only live for ourselves, life feels empty and lonely. But when we live for others, we find joy, meaning, and we learn to love and share." Daniel asked again, voice tinged with doubt. "But if you only work to earn money, to buy a house, food, clothes, is that living just for yourself?" The father looked at him, eyes softening, and replied slowly, "If you only earn to spend on yourself, yes, that's living for yourself. But I work to provide for our family, to help others, and to contribute to society. When we think beyond ourselves, life gains meaning." Daniel nodded, still unsure. "So if you're not rich, can you help anyone beyond our family?" The father chuckled softly. "Being rich isn't everything, son. But if we are wealthy in order to help, to share, that's true wealth. When each person grows rich in that way, society becomes better." Daniel's eyes lit up. "If everyone thought like you, the whole country would be rich, and we could help other countries too, right, Dad?" The father nodded. "Exactly. When our country is strong and prosperous, we can help other nations and contribute to a moral, peaceful, and happy world. And you see, to reach that goal, we start with small things, helping family, friends, neighbors, then the community, and eventually society at large. Daniel fell silent for a long moment, gazing out the window where the sunset painted buildings and trees in golden light. He realized that small daily actions, helping his mum pick up trash, sharing toys with friends, helping grandparents, were all the first steps toward learning responsibility and love. The father stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the city gradually quiet. Son, life will always bring challenges. There will be times of exhaustion, disappointment, even moments we feel like giving up. But when we know why we live, when we have goals to reach, every struggle becomes worthwhile. Daniel looked up at his father, eyes bright. So I have to live to love and help others, and to build a better world. The father nodded, voice deep and warm. That's right. You're understanding quickly. Life isn't just eating, sleeping, going to school, or work in its responsibility. Compassion, contribution, and meaning. A quiet, warm atmosphere settled in the small apartment. Daniel continued organizing his books, but inside, he pictured a bigger world beyond himself, where he wanted to live not just for himself, but for others. The father watched, feeling hope, curiosity, and determination in his son, knowing that today's questions had planted seeds that would last a lifetime. As the sun dipped behind the buildings, both father and son stood by the window, looking out at the street below. The city still buzzed with activity, its relentless pace undiminished, but within this small apartment, another world had opened, a world where Daniel began to understand love, responsibility, and the purpose of life. And so, Sunday drew to a close. But the journey of discovering the meaning of life for father and son was only beginning, full of questions, challenges, and meaningful moments they would face together. Monday passed, and Daniel returned to school. The streets leading to school were crowded, students rushing with heavy backpacks, laughter and chatter mixing with the bell signaling class. Daniel walked alongside his father, still feeling the city's hurried pace in his heartbeat. Son, today, pay attention to the people around you. Everyone has their own story, and we can learn something from each of them, his father said. Daniel nodded, curiosity in his eyes. Like what, Dad? His father smiled. Like your classmates, some are cheerful, some are quiet. Each of them is trying to live, to study, to overcome their own challenges. Observing them helps you understand that life isn't just what you go through yourself, but also how you perceive and help others. Entering the classroom, Daniel greeted his teacher and friends, then sat at his desk. The scratching of pens, the rustling of papers, and the teacher's voice filled the room, but his mind still lingered on the morning's conversation with his dad. He looked around and saw friends laughing, a few sneaking glances at their phones, others focused on their work. Each face carried its own story, its own burden. During recess, Daniel noticed a classmate sitting alone, looking sad. He remembered his father's words, "Life isn't just for yourself, it's for others too." "Hey, are you okay?" Daniel asked gently. The classmate looked up, surprised, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm just feeling a bit down." Daniel smiled, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. "I understand. I feel that way sometimes too, but you know, when someone shares your burden, it gets a little easier." His friend smiled, eyes brighter. Daniel felt a small but deep joy. He realized that caring for others, sharing both sorrow and joy, was an essential part of life lessons his father had been teaching him after class. Daniel played with a few friends in the schoolyard. Laughter echoed across the playground, but Daniel observed quietly. He remembered his father's lesson. Everyone has their burdens, and everyone can help someone else. Returning home, Daniel told his father, "Dad, today I helped a friend who was sad, and he smiled. I felt really happy, just like you said." His father took Daniel's hand, eyes shining. "See, Daniel, when we care and help, we don't just make others happy, we make ourselves happier too. Life becomes beautiful through these simple acts." That evening, Daniel helped his mother prepare dinner, washing vegetables and peeling potatoes. He reflected on all he had learned that day: love, sharing, responsibility, and observing those around him. His father stood by the kitchen doorway, proud and hopeful. "Dad," Daniel whispered, "if I live to help others, care for friends, and support my family, am I living the right way?" His father smiled, nodding warmly. "Yes, my son. But remember, living the right way isn't just helping when it's easy. It's patience, resilience in difficult times, and doing your best in every situation. When you understand that, life becomes meaningful in ways nothing else can match." That night, the family gathered around the dinner table. Daniel shared stories about his classmates, what he had observed, and what he had learned. His mother listened, smiling with warmth and pride. His father watched, feeling both Daniel's growing understanding and the compassion in his heart. Before going to bed, Daniel sat by the window, gazing at the darkening sky. The streetlights shimmered like tiny stars. He quietly promised himself, "I will live to love, to help, to do good for others. That is what gives life meaning." His father stood behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's right, son. Every day we live, we learn something new. Every small moment matters. If you keep that heart, you will never see life as meaningless." And so, Monday passed, filled with school, friends, family, and life's first lessons. Daniel learned that life isn't only about oneself, but about community, sharing, and loving tirelessly. The journey for father and son to discover the meaning of life continued, expanding into more lessons, challenges, and meaningful moments to cherish. Tuesday morning, soft sunlight filtered through the apartment window, casting a warm golden glow over the small space. Daniel woke up earlier than usual, eager to see the outside world, where the city was already alive. The sounds of cars honking, buses rumbling, and street vendors calling out mingled together, creating a lively symphony of life. His father stood by the kitchen table, sipping his coffee, his eyes calm yet thoughtful. Today wasn't just an ordinary school day. He planned to take Daniel out into the community, to show him that life extended beyond school, family, and playgrounds. "Son," his father said, "today I want us to go out for a while, not for fun, but to observe the community and see that life is bigger than our classroom or home." Daniel raised his eyebrows, curious but eager. "Observe." "How, Dad?" His father smiled, like the street cleaners sweeping the sidewalks, the vendors selling food, the bus drivers navigating traffic. Everyone has a role. Everyone is trying to live and contribute in their own way. When you pay attention, you'll see that even small actions can make a difference. Walking through the bustling morning streets, Daniel noticed the little details around him: a street cleaner sweeping fallen leaves, A vendor handing an extra pastry to an elderly customer. A bus driver patiently letting pedestrians cross the street. These small acts, often overlooked, suddenly felt meaningful to Daniel. "Dad," Daniel said softly, "can small things really make life better?" His father nodded. "Exactly, son. Every action, no matter how small, has an impact. Helping others, even in little ways, makes the community better. And when many people do it, society improves significantly." They stopped by a community center where children and elderly people were volunteering together. Daniel watched as kids sorted clothing and adults distributed food to those in need. His eyes lit up with curiosity and emotion. "Dad, they seem happy even though they don't have much, right?" Daniel asked. His father smiled warmly. "Yes, happiness isn't measured by money. When we give, share, and care for others, that's true happiness." Daniel began to understand an important truth. Life isn't just about eating, sleeping, learning, or playing. Life is responsibility, love, and contribution to society and the community. He saw joy and fulfillment in small, selfless acts, and felt an emerging desire to participate and help. On their way home, they stopped at a small shop where the shopkeeper was having a disagreement with a customer who hadn't paid. Daniel watched as his father handled the situation calmly and kindly, helping both sides understand each other without causing harm. Daniel realized that responsibility also includes problem solving, fairness, and empathy. Back home, Daniel told his mother, "Mum, today I saw so many people trying to help others. I want to grow up to do the same." His mother smiled proudly. "My son, I believe you will. The important thing is to keep your heart pure, caring, and ready to help others." His father nodded in agreement. "That's right, Daniel. When you grow up, there will be many opportunities to help family, friends, community, and beyond. Every good deed is a contribution to a better society." In the afternoon, Daniel and his father joined a volunteer activity, cleaning a nearby park. Daniel eagerly picked up trash, separated recyclables, and organized organic waste. His father guided him, emphasizing the importance of every action, no matter how small. Watching families, students, and adults working together, Daniel realized the power of community. When people unite, their collective impact is far greater than individual efforts. "Dad," Daniel panted, eyes bright with excitement, "I feel so happy. Helping others makes me happy too." His father smiled, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Exactly, son. When we care, share, and help, we not only make others happy, but also ourselves. Life isn't just about ourselves. It's about making the world around us better." As the sun began to dip behind the buildings, they returned home, hearts full of emotion. That evening, Daniel sat by the window, gazing at the shimmering streetlights, thinking, "I will live to love, to help, to contribute, to make the community and the world better." His father stood behind him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "See, son, every day, every small action creates an impact. When you live for others, you make life meaningful." And so, Tuesday ended, filled with deep lessons about community, social responsibility, and the value of small actions, opening a path for Daniel to learn how to live responsibly, lovingly, and selflessly. The journey for father and son continued, promising challenges and lessons about responsibility, compassion, and living for the greater good. On Wednesday morning, as the sun peeked over the tall buildings, Daniel and his father stepped out of their apartment, ready for another day. But today was different. His father wanted Daniel to understand that life extends beyond family and neighborhood. It reaches the wider society and the nation. "Son," his father said in a calm, warm voice, "today we're going somewhere special. I want you to see that every person, every family, has responsibilities not just for themselves, but for the society and country they live in. Living responsibly means thinking bigger than yourself." Daniel furrowed his brow, curious. "Responsibility to the country? Dad, I don't really understand." His father smiled patiently. "When you grow up, you will understand. Everyone living in this country has a role. We study to become useful. We work to contribute to the economy. We help those in need. We pay taxes so the government can build schools, hospitals, and roads. When many people do their part, the nation becomes stronger, more civilized, and better. And when the country is strong, it can even help other nations, spreading happiness, peace, and fairness." Walking through the busy streets, Daniel noticed office buildings opening, workers starting their day, and students hurrying to school. Each person had a role, and together they formed a massive, complex system. Missing even one small part could disrupt the whole. Daniel began to grasp the magnitude of collective responsibility. They stopped at a social service center, where volunteers coordinated aid for people in need. Daniel watched young staff carefully checking lists, distributing food and medicines. His eyes widened. This was a scale far larger than the neighborhood or school. "Dad," Daniel whispered, "so many people need help. How can we ever help them all?" His father looked at him seriously but warmly. "We can't help everyone at once, son. But if each person does their part well, we create collective power. When I work hard, pay my taxes, support friends and neighbors, that helps the country grow stronger. And when the country is strong, it can help other countries too, spreading goodness, peace, and opportunity." Daniel imagined a large, interconnected picture: individuals, families, and organizations like links in a chain, together building a strong society. He began to understand that life is not just about school, play, or helping in the neighborhood. It also includes a greater responsibility to society and the nation. Next, they visited a government office. Daniel saw people working diligently on education, healthcare, and social welfare projects. He noticed their focus, dedication, and the pressure they faced. His father explained, "See, Daniel, their work isn't just a job, serves the whole society. Every document, plan, and decision affects thousands, even millions of people. And when you grow up, your work can contribute in the same way." Daniel quietly observed, feeling both humbled and inspired. He realized that living only for oneself is not enough. Living to learn, to work, to help others, and to contribute is how people give life true meaning. On the way home, they passed parks where families strolled, adults exercised, and children played. Daniel suddenly understood the efforts of each person, family, and community create peace and happiness in these simple moments. "Dad," Daniel said softly, "I get it now. If we live only for ourselves, life feels small and narrow. But if we live for family, for community, for the country, life is so much more meaningful." His father hugged him gently. "Exactly, son. Life won't just be worries and hardships. When you live for higher purposes, you will find joy, happiness, and real meaning. Every step you take, every action you make, contributes to a bigger, better picture. That evening, Daniel sat by the window, looking out at the city lights shimmering like tiny stars. He silently promised himself, "I will live not just for myself, but for family, friends, community, and my country. Every good action will make a difference. I want to become someone who matters." His father stood behind him, hand on his shoulder, voice calm and warm. "See, son, every day, every small action, every decision creates impact. When you live responsibly, you make the world better, and that, truly, is the meaning of life." And so, Wednesday ended with profound lessons about social responsibility, duty to the nation, and the role of each individual in building a better society. Daniel's perspective had expanded. He realized that meaningful life is not just about learning or playing, but also about contributing, loving, and being responsible for the greater good. The journey of father and son continued, with more challenges and lessons about the purpose of life, responsibility, and compassion, preparing them for the next steps in their journey. On Thursday morning, Daniel woke up feeling a bit tired. He knew today would be a long day. Not only was there a test at school, but also a volunteer session at the community center. The pressure weighed heavily on him, yet part of him was excited to try and prove himself. His father watched as Daniel packed his school bag, smiling warmly but with a serious gaze. "Son, today will bring challenges. Remember, difficulties aren't meant to defeat you, they're meant to help you grow." Daniel furrowed his brow but kept his eyes bright. "Yes, Dad, I'll do my best." At school, Daniel quickly realized that pressure wasn't only about knowledge. In class, students competed to answer questions and earn praise from the teacher. Daniel felt slightly behind, struggling to keep up with the fast pace. For a moment, he wanted to give up. But remembering his father's words, he took a deep breath, closed his eyes briefly, and reminded himself, "Take it step by step, don't fear mistakes." When the test began, Daniel's hands trembled. Numbers, formulas, and words on the page seemed to dance before his eyes. But his father's voice echoed in his mind. "Difficulties are not to defeat you, they're to help you grow." Daniel started writing slowly, carefully focusing on each question, each thought after school. His father took Daniel to the community center. Today, they were to help clean an old neighborhood, where trash had piled up and many structures were broken. Daniel looked at the huge pile of garbage, feeling overwhelmed. "Dad, how can we clean all of this?" Daniel sighed. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to do it all alone. What matters is doing your part well. When many people work together, everything gets done. Remember, labor is like learning, patience, effort." Step by step, Daniel began picking up small pieces of trash, separating paper, plastic, and organic waste. At first, he was slow and clumsy, but gradually, seeing everyone around him working diligently and helping one another, Daniel became more enthusiastic. Sweat dripped down his forehead, his hands were sore, yet a strange joy welled up inside him. He was making the streets cleaner, improving other people's lives. "See, Daniel," his father said during a short break, "work isn't just about earning money or finishing a task. When you work and contribute, you feel your own value. You'll learn patience and responsibility." Daniel nodded, his eyes brightening. He realized that challenges weren't obstacles, they were opportunities to learn and grow. Even in failure or fatigue, Effort itself held value. In the afternoon, returning home, Daniel was exhausted but happy. Sitting by the window, his hands still dusty and sweaty, he gazed at the streets below. His father stood behind him, hand on his shoulder. "Do you see, son? Challenges and difficulties will always appear. But thanks to them, you learn patience, responsibility, and appreciation for the little things around you. Every step you take, every action you make, contributes to shaping yourself and society." Daniel smiled, a sense of peace spreading in his heart. "I overcame today's challenges. I grew a little, and I know there will be more challenges, but I'm ready." His father looked at him, eyes shining with pride. "That's right, son. Learning and labor are not just duties, they're opportunities to discover yourself, find purpose, and contribute to the world. When you learn to overcome challenges today, you're building the foundation for future success and happiness." That evening, as the room glowed softly with lamplight, Daniel reflected on the day. He understood that challenges are an essential part of life, and that patience, responsibility, and tireless effort are what give life meaning. Today, he learned that failure is not scary. Exhaustion is not scary, but giving up is. The journey of father and son continued, with new challenges, new lessons, and deeper experiences about life, work, responsibility, and the value of personal effort. Daniel realized that living is not just about existing, it's about overcoming challenges, learning, contributing, and growing. Friday arrived, and Daniel woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today at school, besides the usual lessons, the teacher had organized a group activity where students had to collaborate, discuss, and solve challenging situations. Daniel knew this wasn't just a lesson in knowledge, it was a lesson in understanding and managing emotions and working with others. Essential skills for growing up. On the way to school, his father walked alongside him. "Son, today I want you to pay attention to both your feelings and the feelings of others. Learning facts is important, but understanding emotions helps you live happily and harmoniously with people." Daniel nodded seriously. "I'll try my best, Dad." In class, the teacher divided the students into groups and gave each a simulated scenario. A community project was delayed, and group members disagreed on how to proceed. Daniel noticed two students arguing fiercely while another remained silent and confused. He took a deep breath, remembering his father's words, "Understanding emotions is the first step to solving problems." Daniel began speaking gently with each member, listening carefully to their perspectives and feelings. He realized the two arguing weren't wrong, they were simply worried and afraid of failing. Daniel said softly, "I understand you both. Everyone wants the project to succeed. Let's combine ideas and find the best solution together." His words calmed the group. Members began to listen and respect one another, collaborating more effectively. When the group finally proposed a solution, everyone felt proud and happy for overcoming the conflict. Daniel realized that understanding and managing emotions allows us to build strong relationships and achieve collective goals. After school, his father took him to a community gathering at a cultural center. People shared stories of challenges, resilience, and finding peace and joy in life. Daniel listened to an elderly teacher who taught children in difficult areas, a single mother overcoming hardships to care for her child, and a young man with a disability contributing to his community. Hearing these stories, Daniel understood that spiritual value isn't found in money or power, but in love, sharing, patience, and empathy. A quiet determination arose within him. I want to live not just for myself, but to spread goodness to those around me. His father looked at him, voiced warm and steady. See, Daniel. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize and manage your own emotions while understanding and empathizing with others. When you do this, you not only become a better person, but also help make society better. Daniel nodded, feeling maturity and confidence swell within him. He realized that a meaningful life isn't just about work or study, it's also about building spiritual values and healthy relationships. That afternoon, back home, Daniel wrote in his journal, recording his feelings and the lessons from the group activity and community gathering. He promised himself, I will practice emotional intelligence every day, listen, empathize, and help others. Doing this will make life more meaningful and joyful. His father stood behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. See, son, responsibility alone isn't enough. We need to live with emotional intelligence, love, empathy, and sharing. When you achieve this, you're building a meaningful and truly happy life. As night fell, Daniel looked out the window, the city lights twinkling like tiny stars. He realized his journey was still long, with many challenges and lessons about life, emotions, relationships, and spiritual values. But he was ready, with faith, patience, and a heart full of love, to continue on the path of growth and contribution. And so, Friday ended, marking an important step in Daniel's journey, learning to manage emotions, build strong relationships, and live with spiritual and moral values, preparing him for the final challenges and deep lessons in the next part. Saturday arrived, the sky bright and clear, sunlight gently stretching over the familiar streets. Daniel woke up with an unusual sense of happiness and peace. He knew that today wasn't just a weekend day, was an opportunity to reflect on a week full of lessons and experiences, and to deeply feel the meaning of life that his father had guided him through from part 1 to part 9. His father entered the room, a warm smile on his face. Son, today I want us to reflect on everything we've learned. Life isn't just about studying, working, or playing. It's a combination of family, social responsibility, hard work, emotional intelligence, and spiritual values. Daniel nodded, eyes shining, feeling the growth of maturity within his thoughts. The father and son began walking through the park where their story had first started. The lush green trees, the cheerful chirping of birds, and the gentle spring breeze carrying the scent of flowers made the space feel peaceful and calm. Daniel looked at his father, his heart full of gratitude. I've learned so much from him, his father said. Son, remember this, a life with purpose is never meaningless. If we live only for ourselves, we risk losing our way. But if we live for our family, our community, our country, and for higher values, life becomes full and meaningful. Daniel reflected with every step and every glance around the park. He remembered his earliest questions. Why live? Why work? Why help others? Now, after a week full of experiences, he realized the answers were not just theoretical, they were found in lived experience, effort, and love. Dad, I think I understand now, Daniel said, his voice calm yet firm. If we live only for ourselves, life feels dry and empty. But if we live to love, help, and contribute, every day has meaning. Every action, no matter how small, adds to the bigger picture of life. His father smiled, pride shining in his eyes. Exactly, son. Every step you take, every action you make, contributes to a better world. When you combine personal effort with emotional intelligence, hard work, responsibility, and love, you are living a truly meaningful life. Daniel looked around the park and saw families, friends, and people enjoying their lives. He realized that everyone, young and old, contributes to the rhythm, joy, and happiness of society. This gave him a profound sense of connection to the world around him. Dad, I think the purpose of life isn't just to avoid difficulties or to earn lots of money, but to love, learn, help, and contribute, right? His father placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, his voice warm and steady. That's right, son. If you live with high ideals, even when facing challenges or hardships, you will still feel joy, happiness, and the true value of life. And by doing this, you are contributing to a better family, a better society, a better country, and a better world. They continued their walk, sunlight brushing their hair and faces, bringing joy and deep calm. Daniel stayed quiet, but his mind was full of thoughts about family, responsibility, work, emotional intelligence, and spiritual values, all blending into a vivid picture of a complete and meaningful life. Back home, Daniel wrote in his journal for the last time that week, recording important lessons. Family is the foundation for love and life. Work and responsibility help you grow and contribute to society. Money and success have real value only when used to help others. Emotional intelligence builds strong, lasting relationships. Spiritual values are a powerful source of energy that make life meaningful. Daniel looked out the window. The golden sunset bathed the city in warm light. He smiled, knowing the journey ahead was still long. But he had learned to live with purpose, love, and responsibility, taking each step through life fully. His father stood beside him, looking at his son with warmth and pride. Son, I believe that if you continue living like this, you will not only grow, but also positively impact everyone around you. Life will never be meaningless when you live with an open heart and high ideals. And so, Daniel's week of experiences, lessons, and discoveries came to an end. From simple questions about why we live, he had faced challenges involving family, learning, work, society, and spiritual values. Ultimately realizing that every day is precious, every action matters, and life becomes most beautiful when lived with high ideals, love, and dedication. Daniel's journey ends here, but the lessons of meaningful living, hard work, responsibility, emotional intelligence, and spiritual values will stay with him for a lifetime. He understands that to live is to learn, to love, and to contribute, and that is the true meaning of life. Life becomes truly complete when we live not just for ourselves, but also for our family, our community, and the world around us. Hard work, love, sharing, and giving are how each of us creates purpose, spreads happiness, and contributes to a better society.